1-800-920-1580, 1-800-920-1580. All of our socials can be found at KBLA 1580. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Everything at KBLA 1580. Let me also invite you to download our app right now at KBLA 1580. Download the app and take us with you anywhere in the world and listen to us in real time, but only if you download the app right now at KBLA 1580. And we thank you. Should you miss us any day in real time, check out the podcast of this program by going to the app, the website, Anchor, Spotify, Apple, so many places, as you know, to get the podcast of this program and listen at your leisure should you miss us any day in real time. But I am delighted to have you along live with us today for the next 3 hours. Let me also invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, the woman who warned us 5 years ago that Donald Trump was a clear and present danger and then lost her job at Yale for saying so. Medical doctor and forensic psychiatrist Dr. Bandy Lee joins us at the top of hour two. On the B side of hour two, our regular contributor Ruben Navarrete Jr. with his unique take on what really happened last Tuesday on Election Day as he sees it. In our third hour, it has been an intriguing past few months in the tech world, particularly regarding Twitter. The father of virtual reality, Jaron Lanier, returns to this program in hour three to discuss Elon Musk's management or mismanagement, as it were, of Twitter, how Musk, Donald Trump, and Kanye West are what he calls Twitter poisoned, and how Twitter poisoning and perhaps social media poisoning overall is destructively impacting public discourse and public behavior. But in this first hour today, despite fellow Republicans and close advisors begging him to hold off until after the December 6th Georgia Senate runoff contest featuring Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker, Donald Trump is set to launch a new bid for the White House tomorrow evening at his Mar-a-Lago resort in West Palm Beach, Florida. So we pretty much knew this day was coming, right? But now what? Pleased to be joined by Dr. Cynthia Miller Idris. She's an American University School of Public Affairs professor, runs the school's Polarization and Extremism Research and Innovation Lab, otherwise known as PERIL, and is the author of the text Hate in the Homeland, the New Global Far Right. Professor, good to have you on the program. How are you today?
Thank you, Tavis. Thanks for having me, and please call me Cynthia.
Oh, well, you earned that title, so I'm going to call you Dr. Miller Idris, but I appreciate the invitation to do so. Thank you for your time. Glad we've got an hour. There's a whole lot to unpack here. Let me start with that question I posed a moment ago, not at all rhetorically. We all knew this day was coming, so now what?
It's a great question. I mean, there's a lot of a lot has shifted in the last week because of the election results, and so and the rapidity with which the Republican Party is shying away from Trump. So he's persona non grata at the moment, and so if he announces, I think it's going to add to the chaos that's already happening on that side, and probably start off a pretty hostile campaigning season within the Republican Party. So we'll kind of be able to just watch some of the hostility happen within the party rather than, hopefully across party lines and targeting other people. Although, as we know, what we've seen is that political rhetoric does tend to legitimize and spill over to a lot of vulnerable and targeted groups as well.
Yeah. What do you make of the fact that he is returning as he left? And I guess I can't say returning because he never really went anywhere really except out of the White House, and at one point was threatening not to do that, as you recall. But my point is, what do you make of the fact that he is returning as he left? That is to say, to my earlier comment, that everybody around him, his close advisors, Republicans writ large, are insisting, demanding, begging him to hold off on this announcement until after the December 6th runoff in Georgia, and in typical Trump fashion, he ain't listening to nobody.
Yeah, well, I mean, what you want from politicians, ideally, is that any politician, you'd like them to put country over party. And I think what we see here is this is a person who not only doesn't put country over party, but isn't able to put party over his own personal ambitions. And so he's not listening. He doesn't put the country first. He doesn't put the party first for him. And he's, this is about him and his own beliefs and his that he still doesn't believe he didn't lose. He's not able to believe that, not able to accept that, and just wants to come out and do what he wants. And so it's been undermining their successes, and and I think that writing is. There's still millions and millions of people who believe him and who believe that the election was invalid. There's still millions of election deniers that support him, including some he stumped for in this campaign, so in the midterm. So, I don't think we can just write him off as totally irrelevant. He still has a power to persuade a lot of people.
Yep. The thinking is that Donald Trump is announcing tomorrow evening from his resort in Mar-a-Lago, and he's announcing earlier than anybody else has ever done this, for one primary reason. Two reasons, I should say. One, he wants to box in these other Republicans. And by getting out so early, it puts people, again, in an interesting sort of situation. What's also fascinating for me is that he's basically announcing within 24 hours of Mike Pence's book coming out, which takes him to task. Mike Pence has finally found his spine, as it were, to the extent that he has one. He's found that spine, and he goes pretty hard on Trump in the book. I mean, some of the comments he made in a recent interview with ABC are pretty telling about the way he really felt. And all this time, he's been sort of a Trump sycophant, if you ask me. But he's coming out of that sycophancy stage, and he's, again, finding the spine, and he's gone pretty hard on Trump, as best I can tell in the text. I haven't read it in its entirety, but I'm reading bits and parts here and there, trying to prepare myself for these conversations. So in that very moment when he writes this book, and I love the title, "So Help Me God," that we could talk about that for 2 hours, just the title alone. But so Trump steps in. He's basically stepping on Pence once again, as he always has done. He's stepping on Pence's moment. He's coming out to make this announcement, but ultimately it's about boxing in other Republicans, including Mike Pence. What do you think of his decision to do that strategically?
Well, I think, he's trying to deflect, obviously. He wants to deflect attention from that book and from the criticism that is coming his way. But it's, we're seeing a lot of people suddenly distance themselves from Trump just in the last week who were pretty silent before. And I think that that's going to continue. I think people are, I think a lot of folks on the conservative Republican side were unwilling to speak up to the damage that was being done, and all of a sudden we're starting to see that because it maybe no longer politically, strategically valuable to them, as valuable as they thought it was, now they'll reject the politics of hate and of division that Trump was driving with. So I think we're going to continue to see that distancing because after 2 election cycles now in a row, I mean 3 counting the presidential election, they've seen that didn't work, and so they stuck with it through those midterms and through the presidential, and now suddenly I think we're seeing a lot of removal. So I think he's trying to come out ahead of it, and he would like to avoid, he sees this turn happening both in conservative commentators and also other elected officials who are saying this was a losing strategy, but it took them kind of 3 cycles of elections to acknowledge that.
Or will be tomorrow evening, we are told, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 Pacific, when he makes his announcement that he is launching yet another bid for the White House. Donald Trump, again, we're told, is making that announcement tomorrow night from his Mar-a-Lago resort in West Palm Beach, Florida. So a great deal to talk about, whether we want to or not. Because, again, as you heard Dr. Miller Idris suggest a moment ago, you can't write this guy off. It's just too dangerous to completely write him off. So Donald Trump will be back on the national stage once again tomorrow evening. A great deal more to talk about as we move through this hour with American University's Dr. Cynthia Miller Idris. Her book is called Hate in the Homeland, The New Global Far Right. We'll get to that and a great deal more. Here's a taste of what Mike Pence had to say in that ABC interview, and we'll come forward in a moment on KBLA Talk 1580.
And I said it doesn't take courage to break the law. It takes courage to uphold the law. And the president's words were reckless. It's clear he decided to be part of the problem. Over the course of several hours, you spoke with the acting defense secretary. You spoke with the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Milley.
I did.
You spoke with the acting Attorney General, Jeff Rosen, with the Chief of Capitol Police. Where was the president in all this?
David, I was at the Capitol. I wasn't at the White House.
And when you learned later that he was watching all this unfold on TV?
I can't account for what the president was doing that day. I was at a loading dock in the Capitol where a riot was taking place.
But why wasn't he making these calls?
That'd be a good question for him.
Be sure to like and follow Tavis Smiley at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues when we come forward. KBLA Talk 1580 would like to thank all the businesses that tune in to KBLA at work. We celebrate you, your calls to the station, and your overall support. To show our appreciation, we would like to treat your office to a lunch for 10, brought to you by K. Michelle's Kitchen Catering. Open the KBLA Talk 1580 app or log on to KBLA1580.com to be selected for our Office of the Week. We know you are just like our staff, putting in many smart, hard-working hours per week. We just want to say thank you, and we appreciate you. You and your staff deserve lunch on us. Enter your office to win lunch for 10 and be highlighted on KBLA Talk 1580 as our Office of the Week. Open the KBLA app or log on to KBLA 1580 to enter your office today to become the KBLA Talk 1580 Office of the Week. Sponsored by K. Michelle's Kitchen Catering.com. Become the KBLA Talk 1580 Office of the Week. This has been a KBLA Talk 1580 community call to action.
Open enrollment for medical insurance is here. RHJ Insurance Agency can help you find affordable rates and the plan that's just right for you and your family. Call 562-204-6120 for your free quote. Don't leave your health to chance. Open enrollment is here and affordable coverage is just a phone call away. Call 562-204-6120 for your free quote and get the coverage you need. Go to www.rhjins.com.
Nacho fries are back at Taco Bell. You know, the fries covered in bold Mexican spices you dip in a warm nacho cheese sauce. You can also dunk them in nacho cheese sauce or pour the sauce onto a pile of them and create like a nacho fries nachos. The thing is that you eat them with nacho cheese sauce. That's what makes them nacho fries. Otherwise, you're just eating fries and sipping on nacho cheese sauce, and that's the wrong way. Sorry, just really passionate about nacho fries.
Nacho fries are back, only at Taco Bell. At participating U.S. Taco Bell locations for a limited time only while supplies last. Contact local store for hours and participation which vary.
Where can you light up the tree and the savings? Lowe's, actually. Find deals on endless festive holiday decor, like 20% off all pre-lit artificial trees and endless gifts found only at Lowe's. Like the new Cobalt 257-piece mechanics tool set for $99. Back daily for deals during Black Friday month and start saving now at Lowe's. Home to any possibility. Offer valid through 11/16 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
Interrogating your assumptions and expanding your inventory of ideas. Let's get back to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm told I made a huge boo-boo, which is not my typical way, although none of us is perfect. If I say tomorrow night, I meant tonight. Today is Tuesday. I've been a day off for the last week or so because of these elections, and I got to catch up myself. That announcement is supposed to be made by Trump tonight. Today is Tuesday already. I said tomorrow night. Today is Tuesday, so my mistake. I'm sorry. You do not have the 24-hour reprieve that I thought you had. Again, I'm looking at all these news stories, and that is tonight, and I just again made a mistake. So apologies for that. So it's happening Tuesday night, and today is Tuesday, not Wednesday night. So this will be again in the news cycle, of course, for the next few days. But we're told that that's coming this evening from West Palm Beach. Our guest in this hour is Dr. Cynthia Miller Idris. Her book is called Hate in the Homeland, The New Global Far Right. She's professor at American University in Washington, and I'm pleased to have her on for the hour. I played, before we went into that break, a bit of sound on tape from Mike Pence. What do you make, Professor Miller Idris, of Mike Pence and his comments over the last couple of days about what apparently he really felt, what he really endured, that he kind of kept quiet all this time?
I mean, you know, it's always good to hear some of that kind of those words, but these revisionist, years later kind of retractions of silence even, I think is we have to call that out for what it is. It's just, where was everybody when this was going on? Why didn't we hear more of the kind of voices that we're hearing now, that folks are starting to reject this hateful rhetoric and the politics of of real division that was being forged for so many years that really led to so much harm. I mean, I think we have to remember this wasn't just like rhetoric that divided the country on partisan lines. We also have the highest hate crimes in 12 years right now. We have record-breaking anti-Semitism, Islamophobia. The anti-black portion of hate crimes is the vast majority of that. We had a hearing just today here in D.C., the House Homeland Security Committee, in which the Homeland Security Secretary, Alan Mayorkas, said domestic violent terrorism continues to be the biggest threat on the Homeland Security front, and that is really driven by white supremacist extremists and anti-government extremists. So, I just think it's one thing to kind of like come back, a year later and say, well, what I really felt was this, but where were the voices that were speaking up during the time when so much harm was done to what people believe and the harm that was really causing on the ground, on local levels, on daily interaction, and in the kind of hate that we've been seeing increase across the country.
To your point about hate increasing, are you drawing a clear line between Trump's announcing that he is going to run again for the White House and what you expect to be an increase in political violence?
Well, what we saw first of all, I think it's really important to note that Trump didn't create the kind of hate that we have. He unleashed, in a lot of ways, what was already growing. So the record-breaking number of hate groups in this country actually spiked after Obama was elected. So that was in 2010. So, we really, and then it just kind of, and what I see that story as is that when Trump came along, he kind of legitimized and normalized a lot of that rhetoric and language by using hateful terms, by refusing to condemn the white supremacists in Charlottesville, by using language like, oh, there's good people on both sides, but also by using by using derogatory terms against immigrants and Muslims and people who live in Baltimore. I mean, there's just incident after incident after incident where he used language like that. So, I don't think we could say like, oh, if Trump goes away, just because Trump goes away, it didn't go away, right? I mean, it was he legitimized and normalized it, but it's still been going up since he left office. So, these things haven't gotten better, so I'm not saying it will get worse if he comes back, but it certainly didn't help the situation, and the fact that so few people stood up to him on the Republican Party and just were willing to take that consequence of that legitimation and normalization of a lot of hate, I think, as part of the cost of doing business for the Republican Party, I think is something we have to continue to look at and hold people accountable for.
You're an expert in this field, which is why I wanted to have you on this program. So you read the same data and a great deal more than I do, but the data that I've read and we've discussed on this program is that there is a significant number of fellow citizens who would support the use of violence to return Donald Trump to office. That data came out some weeks ago, and everybody was talking about it. So again, I'm talking about this direct line between Trump announcing that he's going to run again and whether or not we can expect that there will be increased political violence. It's hard not to believe that, hard not to accept it. I hear your hesitancy about not wanting to draw a direct link, but it's hard not to. It's hard not to be concerned, if not afraid of that, given the data again that there are people in this country who welcome the use of violence if that's what it takes to return him to the White House.
Yes, I think on that front, on the political violence side, that is the increasing numbers of people who believe, you're absolutely right, that political violence is valid, and on top of that, increasing numbers of people who think that the other party is not just wrong but evil. So we call that moral disengagement. Those numbers are going up. So and that is a direct precursor. Those kinds of beliefs are a direct precursor to political violence and even mass atrocity, because that kind of dehumanization, when you start using, we saw that with Paul Pelosi's attack, when you start seeing Nancy Pelosi with devil's horns and swastikas on her face at all these rallies, right? This demonization of the other and the use of language like evil or democrats. That kind of language is a and we can see that through line. And so, yes, if he comes back and uses that same kind of demonizing language against the other, which there's no reason to think he won't, I think political violence is an inevitability, essentially.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of words that demean and dehumanize others, but I did get a good crack up out of Democrats. That was funny.
Democrats.
Yeah, it was very clever when I first heard that. And Republicans always have, let's be honest, Republicans have a better way of using language than Democrats do. There have been books written about this. My friend Frank Luntz wrote a book about it, Words That Matter. Newt Gingrich was a master at it. They are really good at languaging, right? And when I heard that word Democrats, I just thought that was hilarious. So again, I'm not a fan of that, but it was funny though. It was very, very clever as you put it. So I said earlier there are at least two reasons to my mind, and I think most pundits agree, that Donald Trump is making this announcement almost 2 years early. Nobody ever does that, right? Not this early out. One, he wants to box in other Republicans who are considering running. We'll talk a bit about that more in a second. But the other thing is he wants to get in front of all these indictments that are likely to come. And it gives him some insulation, potentially, from these indictments, and at the very least, it allows him to say, "You see, I'm running for office again. They want me. They want me to not win the White House so badly that they're indicting me and they're coming at me with this and coming at me with that." So we know the narrative. We know where he's going to go with this. Your take on the latter?
Yeah, I think there's several different things going on. One, he really likes to be in the limelight, of course, and he wants to be back in the discussion and the attention. And he wants the rallies, and he likes having those pep rallies, basically, which is what tame rallies become. But he also it gives him this rhetorical strategy of saying that he's being politically persecuted, which is language that's used and really a lot of Trump supporters used to talk about the arrests after January 6th to begin with, that these were political prisoners, that this is political persecution. And so it will give him that language, even if people see through it. A lot of people will not. His supporters will see it as, that he's being, that this is a political attack on him rather than, an investigation into an assault on democracy. They'll see it as a politically motivated attack, and he will be able to frame it that way. So it does give him some rhetorical strategies.
Yeah. I guess the ultimate question is, does it work? And in that regard, we're talking about both these issues now. Does it work in terms of boxing in other Republicans, and does it work rhetorically?
Well, it will work to. I don't think it'll work to convince investigators, people, elected officials. I think folks who are actually pursuing in the January 6th committee. I don't think it's going to work in that sense. I don't even think the media will mostly fall for it. But millions and millions of people who come out into these rallies who actually believe that the election was invalid, who don't believe that who think it was stolen. There are still, a majority of Republicans in polling still believe that. So, there's a lot of people who believe that. So if you already believe that, it's not that much of a leap to go one step further and say, well, they're persecuting him now that he's running again. So, I think it has the power to persuade. But at a moment when the rest of the Republican Party seems to be turning against him, it's hard to tell how much power he'll actually have after announcing. It's going to be messy, and it's going to get ugly, I think. And so that's, that if there's nothing else we can predict that. Yep.
We know that Trump has a disdain for the media, but we also know, if we're being honest, that the media badly mishandled Trump 4 years ago, and almost six years ago now. And I've been reading about that for 6 years, that the media just was complicit in the election of Donald Trump by giving him all this free media time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What's your sense of whether or not the media has learned their lesson about how to handle Donald Trump?
Oh, this is a great question to ask you and to ask journalists, actually, because I think we're, the media ecosystem relies so much now on clicks and on traffic, that's driven to sites. So the media, requires sensational newsletter or news titles and salacious content in order to get people to click on one article versus another and thereby get advertisers to support them. And so it's very difficult, I think, to run independent we see the death of a lot of newspapers, local newspapers, and that might have provided less salacious content. And so I think it's almost like a capitalist question about how media survives without doing that. And so I'm critical of the media, and at the same time I'm quite sympathetic to the dilemma that they face when there's a lot of competition for who's going to read their coverage. So I think we need a better system overall, and I'm not sure how you get there without seeing it happen again.
No, I hear you. A great deal more to talk about in this hour, now that I know it is Tuesday, November the 15th, and that tonight is the night that Donald Trump is making this announcement, the big announcement he's been teeing up, to use his phrase, the big announcement. He's been teeing up for some days now. Will take place this evening from his Mar-a-Lago resort in West Palm Beach, Florida. Her book is called Hate in the Homeland, The New Global Far Right, and so we'll talk when we come forward after News, Traffic, and Sports about how Donald Trump fits into a much larger matrix of what's happening around the world in terms of this new global far right. Our guest is Dr. Cynthia Miller Idris of American University. You're listening to her on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about. Good thing we've got 3 hours. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
I'm Mike Moore, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. In Illinois, several activists are blasting Chicago aldermen for failing to move on a homeless measure. Here's Perry Williams.
40th Ward Alderman Andre Vasquez had some choice words for his colleagues who no-showed.
So whenever they tell you they care about the issues that we have to deal with when we have our unhoused neighbors, when they tell you they're doing everything they can, they are lying to you.
Advocates say the measure would have raised up to $160 million a year to fund wraparound services for the city's homeless population. A proposal that would have gone on the February 28th ballot is now dead. I'm Perry Williams.
Nominees for the 65th Annual Grammy Awards will be announced later this morning. Projects that include African Americans Kendrick Lamar and Beyonce are likely. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Siglet in Garden Grove, 22 Westman for Valley View Street, carpool and 2 left lanes are closed and traffic stops at Beach Boulevard. Got a Siglet in our lead on the 5 Northman for Osborne Street, 4 left lanes are closed there and traffic stops at Lancashire Boulevard. And watch your vehicle stalled in Glassell Park on the 2 southbound for San Fernando Road. Right lane is taken away there. The 2 freeway is slowed down at Colorado Boulevard. Got an injury crash now on the 5 Northman for El Chorro Road right there in Lake Forest. That's got the 2 left lanes blocked off. Watch the delays at Crown Valley.
Dell Technologies Black Friday event starts now with up to 50% off select business PCs powered by 12th Gen Intel Core processors, plus savings on accessories and free shipping. Call a Dell Technologies advisor at 877-ASK-DELL.
Is this the Tavis? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Clippers pulled away for a 16-point win last night in Houston. 6 players scored in double figures for the Clippers, led by Paul George's 22 points. The Clippers are in Dallas tonight. The Lakers are off until Friday when they host Detroit. Rams wide receiver Cooper Kupp will miss several weeks with a high sprain of his right ankle. Kupp ranks second in the NFL this season with 75 catches. Number 1 is Miami's Tyreek Hill with 81. There are no more undefeated teams in the NFL. The Washington Commanders took advantage of 3 Philadelphia turnovers last night to complete a shocking 11-point win over the Eagles. UCLA's men's basketball team rolled Norfolk State, 19 points and 9 rebounds for guard Jalen Clark. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. This sports report was brought to you by MVP Accident Attorneys. When it comes to your settlement, we're a slam dunk. Call 833-MVP-WINS or check their website at themvp.com for a free case review.
When you're the victim of a car accident, hiring the right law firm can be the difference between a rewarding settlement and striking out. Call the pros at MVP Accident Attorneys at 833-MVP-WINS for your free consultation.
Call me your MVP.
Sanctuary of Hope invites you to come out, support Homeless Youth Awareness Month at a candlelight, interfaith prayer, and youth voice reflections. Tuesday, November 29th, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. For more info, visit thesoh.org. Did you know a housing crisis puts young people at huge risk of more violence and trauma? And right now, young people and their children need support more than ever. Prevention services such as financial assistance, education, employment support, and mental health well-being are main drivers of impact. Contact thesoh.org for more information. Did you know an estimated 4.2 million youth and young adults experience homelessness, of which 700,000 are unaccompanied minors? The pathway to functional zero is prevention. More info at thesoh.org. I'll second guest dinners with friends because they can be interrupted by diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or oily stools. It turns out I have EPI, or exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, which means I'm missing the enzymes needed to digest food. My doctor prescribed Creon, pancrelipase, an oral prescription medication that replaces pancreatic digestive enzymes. Creon treats EPI due to cystic fibrosis, chronic pancreatitis, pancreatectomy, or other conditions.
Creon may increase your chance of fibrosing colonopathy, a rare bowel disorder. Tell your doctor if you have a history of intestinal blockage or scarring or thickening of your bowel wall, if you're allergic to pork, or if you have gout, kidney problems, or worsening of painful swollen joints. Call your doctor if you have any unusual or severe gastrointestinal symptoms or allergic reactions. Take Creon as directed by your doctor and always with food. Do not chew capsules, as this may cause mouth irritation. Other side effects may include blood sugar changes, gas, dizziness, sore throat, and cough. These are not all the side effects of Creon.
Creon is the #1 prescribed EPI treatment. Ask your doctor about Creon for EPI and visit creoninfo.com or call 800-633-9110 to learn more. That's CREONinfo.com.
Broadcasting live from Leimert Park, USA. Welcome back to your home for unapologetically progressive radio. KBLA Talk 1580.
Dr. Cynthia Miller Idris is our guest in this hour, professor at American University in the School of Public Affairs and the School of Education at that fine institution, in D.C., of course. Her new text is called Hate in the Homeland, the New Global Far Right, talking about the big announcement that he's been teeing up for some days now. Tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, Donald Trump makes the announcement, which we expect will be his telling us that he is launching a new bid for the White House. And we were talking about the media, Dr. Miller Idris, before that news, traffic, and sports break, and I was just reading during that break that all the major networks are lining up to take this thing live tonight from Mar-a-Lago. So here we go again. I hear your point and your sensitivity to the situation that the media is in. Speaking of being boxed in, we were talking earlier about Trump boxing in Republicans. He's boxed in the media, and these guys can't get enough. I mean, we've been through this once, and every major network, we are told, is taking this feed live tonight from Mar-a-Lago, and that's why Donald Trump put it in prime time. He knows how to play this game, and they're all in again tonight. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think it's perplexing, but also sort of inevitable because the networks know that this is people are if they don't run it, the other network does. Traffic is gonna drive there. It's like watching a car crash. I mean, people are gonna rubberneck and they want to see it, and even if it's just a disaster, it is driven by this salacious content, sensational content, and it's divisive, and we know it's harmful, but we can't seem to stop looking at it, and the media knows that, and they are giving sort of viewers what they want, unfortunately.
Yeah. It is hard to imagine that things could be much more divisive than they already are in this country politically. But let me ask anyway, given what we've already seen come out of the Trump campaign, out of the Trump administration, out of Trump world, how much more divisive do you think things can get, if you think they can, on the other side of this announcement tonight?
Yeah, well, we know things can get much worse. Unfortunately, we as a country, we landed on a list of backsliding democracies exactly a year ago at the end of November 2021, which is, there's a number of criteria that land you on a list like that. The U.S. had never been on a list like that. It's in part due to, the conspiracy theories and election denying claims, but also declining trust in the government and in its institutions, right, across the board. So we got real problems, and on average, countries stay on that list for about 9 years before they move off it one way or the other. So some countries get off of that list because they collapse and are no longer democratic, and some countries are restored. So, I think we can't assume that just because one of the toxic actors that led to some of this, divisiveness is out of office or has been out of office, that it's going to get better. It takes a lot of investments in kind of restoration, civic participation and civic education and digital media literacy for people to reject propaganda. I mean, there's all kinds of things that have to happen. a path toward restoring a democracy rather than continuing on the decline. But I don't think we're nowhere out of the woods yet.
Yep. Why is, let me give you a chance to unpack this, and you sort of teed it up, and I want to, again, interrogate this. Why is, at this moment, in this present moment, America a backsliding democracy? What gives in that regard?
Yeah, well, we're not the only one. I will say
sure.
This is part of the world is especially across the West. We're facing a lot of anti-democratic tendencies with a lot of resurgence of kind of authoritarianism, with people who are rejecting the rule of law, deciding that democracies have failed and that they want leaders who are coming in much more populist ways, claiming that elites have been manipulating, promoting conspiracy theories, undermining trust. One of the things that happens when you start to lose a democracy is you start to lose a common sense of where the truth is, or where you can even get facts that people agree on. And I think we are clearly at that place. We saw that, again, to use the example of the Paul Pelosi attack. I think the fact that within hours of that attack, there were conspiracy theories circulating that not only were living in the dark fringe corners of the internet, but were retweeted and shared by, Elon Musk on Twitter, shared by people who just refused initially to believe, really, even though the guy had confessed that this was a politically motivated attack. And so I think that's where you start to see real danger, is when you don't have consensus in just how you get information. People don't know where to trust as a legitimate source of information, and that's really dangerous.
Your book is called Hate in the Homeland, the New Global Far Right. A moment ago you said that we are not the only backsliding democracy on the planet, around the globe. How does Donald Trump fit in, situate for me Donald Trump in this moment globally?
So there have been a number of sort of elected parties or officials, in Hungary, in Poland, in Italy, in France, in Brazil until recently, right, where you had people come in who were really anti-immigrant, divisive, who were using anti-elite rhetoric, who were using polarizing rhetoric, and also using extremely kind of, in some cases, authoritarian tactics. So closing universities, but also creating new restrictions. Let's say in Poland, for example, on abortion, as we also saw then here in the U.S. Loss of reproductive rights. And so those kinds of rollback of rights, the anti-LGBTQ, anti-trans kind of language, the legislation that is targeting schools on content, book bans, and threats against election officials, but also healthcare workers and even librarians across this country. Those trends we've seen in other places. So there was just before the attack on the U.S. Capitol, there was an attack on the German Reichstag, which didn't get covered very much in the U.S. press here, but some QAnon and anti-government extremists attacked the Capitol there. So, we're seeing these kinds of things, and some of it is related to the pandemic, but some of these trends are holding up with conspiracy theorists really believing things like that there's a cabal of elites trafficking children, right? Like things that just we know is not true and is absurd, but leads fringe actors to take violent action.
So Donald Trump has company, put simply, on the world stage. What's happening globally that's allowing for the election of these sort of far-right individuals?
Well, I think social media has really enabled people to rapidly share conspiracy theories. That's part of it. And so the ideas spread across borders much more easily. But we're also seeing shared manipulation of populations around kind of a sense of fear and threat. So they're using propaganda that is positioning immigrants as a sense of threat, or saying, your white majority country is going to be taken away from you, Western civilization's that threat, whatever the propaganda is that gets used. And sometimes just in very coded ways by talking about the nostalgia for the past, or that the purity of something is threatened, right? And so we saw that with Italy's recent election, where there's a lot of talk about family values and traditionalism that civil language that is also at the same time from a candidate who is sharing really Islamophobic and anti-immigrant ideas. And so, you see those kinds of shared tactics. They see success in one place, that this fueled someone's election, and they copy it, but also because the shared ideas about threats are circulating, and so people, I think genuinely believe it in a lot of cases and are voting for these people.
Donald Trump, again, making his announcement tonight that he is going to launch a new campaign for the White House, and Dr. Cynthia Miller Idris of American University now discussing her book, Hating the Homeland, The New Global Far Right. So Donald Trump, again, is not the only one around the globe espousing these outrageous sorts of views, and we are not the only backsliding democracy, as she put it, on the planet right now. More of our conversation with Dr. Cynthia Miller Idris when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
Life is uncertain. It's okay to feel stressed, anxious, worried, or frustrated. It's normal. With CalHope's free and secure mental health resources, it's easy to get the help you and your loved ones need when you need it the most. Call our warm line at 833-317-4673 or live chat at calhope.org today.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dominique DePrima, host of First Things First, weekdays from 6 to 9 a.m. Join me tomorrow with Freeway Ricky Ross, along with Bo Money. They've got real talk on cannabis. That's only on KBLA Talk 1580.
This Sunday and every Sunday is the African Marketplace and Drum Circle Community Market. Get free groceries, essential resources, and buy black from local merchants of arts, beauty, custom black merchandise, and more. Choose from a wide variety of cuisines, custom-made clothing, jewelry, and a lot more. Experience the true essence of Africatown at Leimert Park every Sunday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Enjoy live performances, connect with other conscious black people. Experience black excellence every Sunday in Africatown at Leimert Park. You can find us on Degnan Boulevard near Vernon and Crenshaw in the heart of Africatown at Leimert Park. That's the African Marketplace and Drum Circle Community Market. Join us for music, shopping, food, and fun this and every Sunday. Support black businesses, recycle black dollars, and feed your soul. The African Marketplace and Drum Circle Community Market every Sunday in Africatown at Leimert Park. Brought to you by Africatown Enterprise and the African Village Vendors Association.
Let's unpack a little bit more with Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues right now.
Dr. Cynthia Miller Idris, some years ago, we started asking the question for obvious reasons, whether or not 9/11 could ever happen again. And now we're asking questions about whether or not January 6th can happen again. It's fascinating to me that in the shadow of this January 6th committee still preparing its final report, Donald Trump steps to the microphone tonight in Florida to announce he's running for the White House once again. You study this. Your book is called Hate in the Homeland. Can January 6th happen again?
I definitely think we could see something like another January 6th because the conditions that led to it haven't really eased up. We still have millions and millions of people who believe the election result was invalid, and even if they're not mobilized against that exact issue, these are people who don't believe facts. We don't have a shared basis for how you determine anymore what the facts are. I think there's a lot of just persuasion. We saw that in the Carrie Lake election, which she lost, and just a tremendous law enforcement that was there. I think there were, folks on the rooftops all over the place. I mean, the possibility of violence is there, even if it doesn't, even if it doesn't manifest. And so I do think we are at a high risk, of potential additional political violence, including things like attacks on elected officials, attacks on institutions, attacks on that are politically motivated, including we just heard a librarian recently, people sitting outside of her house in with guns. That's a librarian. I mean, so even people who are now politically being attacked, who are in positions you don't think of as political violence, but that is really counts as political violence. So I think, yes, we are going to see both potentially another big act of political violence, but also many other kinds of small ones that also erode people's sense of security and safety. It's not just the big terrorist attacks, but also the everyday kinds of hate crimes and politically motivated attacks.
What did you learn in your research about where and how these violent hate groups are recruiting their members, their followers?
The most important thing that I think, and this is the biggest shift since 9/11 and the shift that the U.S. Security officials have really struggled to adapt to, is that whereas internationally organized terrorism was structured in groups, so you had groups that you could infiltrate and monitor, survey was really the primary strategy. The kind of domestic political violence and hate-fueled violence that we're seeing in the U.S. now become the biggest threat, and that was repeated today in testimony from the Homeland Security Secretary, Ali Mayorkas. That type of violence is not organized primarily in groups. There are groups who produce the propaganda, neo-Nazi groups, et cetera, but the vast majority of that is circulated online in what we call post-organizational forms, meaning it's out there. It's out there in chats. It's shared in memes. It's shared in discussion groups. It's circulated, and people radicalize to that belief and then take violent action without ever having been a member of a group or signing on to an actual kind of initiation rite or something. That's much, much harder to interrupt with the strategies that we've in this country prioritized, which are law enforcement and security strategy. It's really much more of an education, public health strategy that has to invest more heavily in preventing people from believing the garbage to begin with.
We have talked in this conversation over the past hour about how the right Republicans are going to respond to Donald Trump's big announcement tonight. We've talked about how the media is going to respond to his big announcement tonight. I want to talk in our remaining moments with Dr. Cynthia Miller-Idris about how the Christian right is going to respond to his announcement tonight. She wrote a powerful piece some days ago about Christian nationalism. I saw the piece that she wrote, and I want to query her about the Christian right and where she expects they will be after this announcement tonight. From Donald Trump, he's launching another campaign for the White House. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where we turn red lights to green lights and keep it moving. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 joins you in standing for human rights. The Los Angeles Civil, Human Rights and Equity Department, or LA Civil Rights for short, is focused on reducing bias and injustices while leveling the playing field. LA Empowerment, the Office of Racial Equity, Hate Prevention, Upward Mobility Programming, and Youth Programming. They convene commissions and advisory councils. The Civil, Human Rights and Equity Department of the City of Los Angeles is led by founding Executive Director Capri Maddox and is breaking new ground for municipal governance. LA Civil Rights oversees citywide initiatives, including the Renew Program, LA Repair Program, and the LA for All campaign. The LA Civil Rights Department believes that the goals of equity and inclusion for all people can be achieved through hard work and collective action. To get involved and be part of the solution, report a civil rights violation, or get more information, visit civilandhumanrights.lacity.org. That's civilandhumanrights.lacity.org or call 213-978-1845. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Finding the right Medicare plan? Oof, no easy feat. Kind of like those dances my granddaughter loves making me do. But then I found Walgreens Find Direct's coverage. Lets you compare plans online, over the phone, or in person. Made Medicare shopping so easy. Plus, I found plans with low cost. You can get down with that. Medicare annual enrollment ends December 7th. Find a plan that's right for you at walgreens.com/Medicare.
KBLA Talk 1580, putting the spotlight on culture and community. The Rodney King Foundation works in the community to promote positive race relations and achieve social justice. The foundation provides advocacy, educational scholarships, and the powerful Walk in Love initiative. The Rodney King Foundation seeks a world of hope, tolerance, and social justice, where divisiveness has been overcome and all people live together peacefully and harmoniously. Executive Director, Founder Laura King is striving to enhance the community's self-esteem, health, social services, and social justice locally and worldwide. The foundation is dedicated to continuing the message of Laura's father, the great Rodney King, to promote peace and #GetAlong. For more information, please visit rodneyking.org or call 626-541-2907. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Conversations that matter. On KBLA Talk 1580.
Dr. Miller Idris, Donald Trump could not have been elected president the first time. Say nothing of his announcement tonight that he's running for the White House once again. Wouldn't happen the first time without the Christian right. I saw the piece again you wrote about Christian nationalism. What do you expect them to do? How are they going to line up this time around?
Well, this is a really interesting question because, you know, the Christian nationalist ideology, which is really an ideology that says, you know, the U.S. is and should remain a Christian nation. It should be prioritized by the state. I mean, there's a lot of different beliefs there to underpin. It's not ordinary Christianity, right? It's a really specific rejection of the separation of church and state in a lot of ways. And they, you know, a lot of the people that were supporting him, that were sort of Trump supporters who ran for office on these platforms, didn't win this week. So you know, we saw Doug Mastriano, the Republican nominee for governor in Pennsylvania, lose. He had called the separation of church and state a myth, right? So in many ways there was a repudiation of some of this by voters, and so it's not clear. But we do know that white evangelicals, 84% of them voted for Trump. You know, in the presidential elections, he had strong support. He sailed to victory basically on the back of that. And there's no reason to believe that they're totally backing off from him now. The question is, I think, whether they will find another better, or they continue to support him. But I don't think we're going to see, you know, full-scale withdrawal. We just saw that some voters are rejecting some of that at the poll, and that certainly happened in the last week.
I know you don't have a crystal ball. I don't either, but I'm just asking for a gut check here. Do you think that this announcement tonight does indeed box others in, put another way, scare certain folk from getting in the race?
You're right. I don't have a crystal ball, but I don't think so, because I think there is enough. If we continue to see this Republican backtracking of support for Trump, a recognition now that after 3 election cycles in a row where it's clear that his politics were being rejected by voters. So, you know, at the midterms, at the presidential election, and now at the midterms again, his brand has been more toxic than they bargained for, and so, you know, I think that what they were willing to tolerate because they thought it was politically expedient is no longer necessarily the case. So I do think we're going to see others come out, but I do think it's also going to be a messy and nasty primary season.
Yeah, that's the mother of all understatements, I think. It all begins. The fun begins tonight, kids. The fun begins tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, when we are told that Donald Trump will make an announcement from his Mar-a-Lago resort that he is launching yet another bid for the White House. And as we said earlier, all the major networks are taking the feed live from West Palm Beach. And we will see what happens in the coming hours, days, weeks, months, and years between now and the 2024 election. Our guest in this hour has been Dr. Cynthia Miller-Idris, brilliant professor in the School of Public Affairs and in the School of Education at American University in Washington, D.C., of course, and author of the text, Hate in the Homeland, the New Global Far Right. I've enjoyed this immensely, Dr. Miller-Idris. Good to have you on. We'll do it again, I promise.
So have I. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. All the best to you. When we come forward after news, traffic, and sports on KBLA Talk 1580, we will talk with the woman who warned us 5 years ago that Donald Trump was a clear and present danger, and then she lost her job at Yale for saying so. Medical doctor and forensic psychiatrist Dr. Bandy Lee joins us after news, traffic, and sports. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Welcome into a Tuesday.